Great. Well, hello, everyone. And here we are in another live broadcast to find out what awaits us in 2026 because a lot of interesting programs are coming up. And today we found the perfect reason to talk about it. So, a big hello to everyone. I see that people are joining very actively. So, I think that not only am I interested, but judging by how many people are joining, you must be interested too. It looks like a lot of people are tuning in. So, I think you'll find this interesting as well. Of course, today I'll be looking at the body graph of the year because I'll be reading the body graph for this year. And here we have all the programs that are coming our way. And while everyone is slowly gathering, let me remind you of what we've actually come to and what we're heading towards in this 26th year. Let's also do a little retrospective on what happened before, because the 26th is inevitably a story of a sequence of events that we've experienced in the past. We all remember, even if we look back just 2 years, everyone who has been following us for a long time, who watches these live streams, and in general, anyone who is in this space related to human design, knows that 2027 is exactly the year when everything changes dramatically, and 2020 is the year when we began the final 7-year cycle of this transitional period. I won't list all the events that have taken place during this transitional period in this last 7-year cycle from 2020 to 2027, but I will remind you of the last 3 years. 2024 was, as everyone calls it, the year of karma. So essentially, we experienced a lot here that was done in the past. And in 2024, we were living through the consequences of all those events that happened before. Because karma isn't just some kind of an old woman with a cane who comes and hits everyone on the head. It's the inevitable consequences of past experiences. What you did in the past definitely affects the future, and karma is exactly that story that comes from previous chains of events. That's why 2024 really highlighted what should be taken into the future and what should be left behind. And so the topic of karma was different for everyone because there was also an individual program at play, so individual karma. This was a karmic year, and we all kept saying the year of karma, the year of karma 2024, and that's exactly the kind of processes we were all going through. The year 25 was a year of cleansing and resetting. So look, 24 kind of summed things up like, well, this is what you had in the past, so don't take this with you into the future, but do take this with you. And the 25th year has already cleared out a new space so that you can take into this future something that is truly solid, while everything that turned out to be outdated, everything that turned out to be unnecessary for the future, the 25th year gradually cleaned all of that out. But the process of this very cleansing is not yet finished, because if we talk about the 26th year, then the 26th, if the 24th gave us results, gave us these karmic outcomes, and the 25th cleared everything out for the new, then the 26th is the year when all the old doors have closed, but the new ones are only just beginning to open. And so even if we look at the body graph of the year and look at all of its programs, then here we will see 1, 2, 3, 4 programs that are coded by the 41st gene key. And what is the 41st for us? Anyone who studies human design knows that this is something new. This is the first such starting codon for something new, the very first step into something new. And as many as 4 out of 13 programs are talking about this newness. If we look at the planets that activate this 41st, these are some pretty significant planets. We have the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Pluto. What do these planets tell us? When we look at the Sun and see it in the 41st program, it means that it's something truly global, all solar, because we live in the solar system. So the Sun gives us more programming themes than anything else. And that's why when the Sun enters the 41st, the first one, it starts something new. Next, the 41st is also the theme of Mercury. And Mercury is the messenger for this year. So this theme of something new will be on everyone's lips. Everyone will be talking about it. Like, damn, the old doors have already closed, but the new ones haven't opened yet. This vibe of something new already directly present in this field will be felt in 2026. People will feel it, and that's why everyone will be talking about it. Some people will be talking about the shadows of the 41st, and the theme of the 41st is the theme of the root center. Anyone who knows human design understands right away that the root center is about our body's adrenaline systems. It's all about stress. And so stressing about the new and about the fact that the old no longer works. That will be the main vibe of 2026. And so the sun, as the main program says, that something new is beginning. Mercury is what's on everyone's lips. Everyone is already saying, damn, something new, something new, something new. The old doesn't work anymore. And some people will cling to the old and will be under a lot of stress and tension. Some people will use the information we shared today to understand what is old and what is new, what is worth holding on to, and what is worth letting go. And that's why they will benefit from the gifts of this transit. And they'll be saying, wow, you can really feel some kind of renewal. And their state will be the same, not stressful, like the shadow of the 41st. It will feel as if you can sense that something new is coming, like a new year, a new energy arriving. Those are the kinds of sensations you'll have. And naturally, this will be on everyone's lips because Mercury will be in the world of those people who understand all these processes, who are at least present at this broadcast, and who will understand how to interact with this newness. The 41st is also in Venus for us. And what is Venus? Venus is our inner morality, and so the inner morality of this year is renewal. Renewal, or rather the initial process of this renewal. Then, of course, the 41st is also in Pluto for us. By the way, the 41st hasn't been in Pluto for a very long time. In fact, to put it in numbers, it hasn't been in Pluto for 246 years. And what is Pluto? It initiates some global processes. And the last time Pluto entered the 41st, a lot of things changed for us. From the perspective of human design, we shifted from a 7-chakra structure to being 9-centered. In other words, it's as if we received new bodies, new awareness, and new knowledge. They had only just begun to appear at that time. And that's why, from the perspective of human design, a new type appeared then, the projectors. Before Pluto entered, they didn't exist. In those very 41st gates, in that very 41st program, there were no projectors on Earth at all. And now, as Pluto enters these same 41st gates, it is giving us yet another new type. A new kind of consciousness, a new kind of people. Raves are beginning to appear. Back then, projectors appeared, and now raves are appearing. So, roughly speaking, when Pluto enters the 41st gate, it means that something new is beginning on a global level. And that's why today we'll break down in detail what this new thing means and how to deal with it at this particular moment. If we look in general at all the programs present in this year's current transit, we'll see that these programs mainly come from the root center, I'm speaking in the language of human design, and mostly from the emotional center, with a few programs coming from the ego as well. In other words, this means that this year will bring us themes of stress or renewal. It's a kind of pressure on our form, pressure on our consciousness, urging us to change. For some, this will be stressful, while for others, it will be a push towards something new. This is what the root center is about. Some kind of internal pressure expressed either as stress or as renewal. If we say that the programs also affect our emotional center, and the emotional center is like our central nervous system. This is a story connected to nervousness, mood swings, and various situations related to emotions, whether they are expressed outwardly or remain inside. That's why this will be an emotionally charged, adrenaline-filled year. But the topic of the ego is also about the manifestation of will, as well as matters related to the material world, because our ego is responsible for willpower and for material things. So this is the kind of year it will be, emotionally charged, adrenaline-filled, with changes also in the material world. That's what all the programs are telling us about. And I will go through all these programs. I will look at them directly. How do they work? It says 37.4 here. I won't just consider it as the 37th program, but we'll look at exactly how it works in the 4th line. This book will help me a lot. It's called Ray Fidzin. Those who attend our courses also receive these books. Here, every gate, let's say for example, gate 36 is described in each line, but it's very unclear here. It's written for someone who is picking up this book for the first time, so I will translate what the planets are telling us into plain, everyday language. In this way, we will go through all these programs that are coming in 2026, and as we read them, we already understand that it's going to be an adrenaline-filled emotional year, or on the contrary, a year of reflection, a year where we learn. To be with our emotions, where we learn to be emotionally sensitive, and in this way, we develop our emotional intelligence. And this essentially is the very topic that will be useful to us in the future, because emotional intelligence, which is talked about so much today, is a new survival system. And so by sensing on an emotional level what is happening, not on a mental level, not on a reptilian level, but specifically through this kind of emotional sensitivity. And by developing your emotional intelligence, you can really understand what is going on. To truly understand, to understand specifically with emotional intelligence, not mentally, but emotionally. Of course, in our courses, we also talk about all of this, how to deal with emotions, how to be sensitive, how to base yourself on this sensitivity. We certainly cover all of this, but here what we're talking about is not the individual person. Today's broadcast is not about that, but rather about how a program affects all of humanity and what kinds of programs are coming. Well then, let's start from the very beginning. Of course, I'll start with the lunar nodes because here they are. The lunar nodes, you see, they're 37.4 and 40.4. The south and north, the southern nodes. The southern nodes describe the atmosphere, the air of this year for us. That is the programs that will be in the air, that will essentially be the atmosphere of this era, will form the sequence of events of this era. And human design tells us directly what these programs are. They are 37.4 and 40.4. Let's start with 37.4. Let's look in this book at how the 37th in the fourth line is described here. I'm jumping right in. Of course, I'm mentally greeting everyone because there are already a lot of people here, already 80 people, so a big, big, big hello to everyone. And the 37th program is, as you can see, the family program. And in the fourth line, it sounds like this. Leadership by example. How is this interpreted? First, I'll read how it's written in human design, and then I'll translate it into plain Russian. Any family member can take on a leadership role through exemplary behavior, the emergence of higher principles in everyday and financial matters, the possibility of higher principles in all relationships, leading to a leadership role. Conservatism, which mostly accepts only the father's leadership, who may or may not be a role model. The possibility of being insensitive to the leadership of anyone except those who are traditionally acceptable. What does this design tell us? What is human design telling us in these unclear words? Let me translate it into plain Russian. The theme of this year, of this 26th year, is to be an example. To be an example, and who is an example? That person becomes the leader, and so the struggle for leadership will essentially be present in all areas. We will see it everywhere. The struggle for leadership in the family, the struggle for leadership at the level of nations, the struggle for leadership at the level of traditions and denominations. In other words, everyone starts fighting for leadership because 37.4 is exactly about that. But here it says that a true leader comes to be an example. And so the shadow of the 37th is being a dominant leader who gets stuck in old programs of conservatism, as you read about conservatism. Old programs of conservatism, dominance, how leadership used to be perceived. I'm the most important and all of you must listen to me. And there's no example there, only domination. And of course, that's not going to work. Even if it does work, it will be with a lot of tension. So if you suddenly find yourself in such communities, and the 37th is part of the 4037 channel, which also became the main program this year, if you find yourself in such communities where leadership is based specifically on domination, where it's all about you only listen to me, and this will be widespread, because in fact, this is the main program, and it will expose the wrong leaders. And so if you end up in such societies, the atmosphere will be very tense because the struggle for leadership there will happen through tension. And so the shadow of 37.4 is being a leader through domination. You definitely don't act like that. And certainly if you suddenly find yourself somewhere and you need to, whether it's fighting for leadership in the family, at work, or in other areas of your life where you need to compete for leadership and you have to use this dominant approach, or if you find yourself in a situation where someone is pressuring you and saying, only listen to me, then these are the environments that are living out the shadows of this 37th program. And nothing comes from it except tension, and certainly it doesn't lead anywhere because the 37th is not the right kind of leader. Through domination, who would be appropriate in this program? But a person who leads by example, who becomes a leader through their actions, everyone looks at them and they serve as an example of high principles. High principles in the family, high principles in some area of work. These are the true leaders, the ones who take on leadership without a struggle. And so when 37.4 appears in the lunar nodes of this year, it means that it's as if a program has been sent down from above. So who among you is a leader? And that's why, according to what the planets tell us, only those who lead by example will move into the future. But if you try to lead through domination and tension or find yourself in such communities, you'll end up right in front of a closed door. That's how it will be. It's what is gradually becoming obsolete. And right now, we're being tested specifically for these states. That's why a true leader is not someone who gives orders, but someone who leads by example. And so the shadow is someone who gets stuck in old conservative programs and tries to be a leader through domination. Well, the gifts are the one who lives his life, is an example, and becomes the very leader he should be. Because since everyone is lost, since everyone is like this, where to go? The doors are closed, new ones have not opened. Where is the leader? Where is the leader? And so if you follow a leader who leads through domination, that leads to being lost. If you follow such a leader, there will be stress and your nervous system will suffer. But if you follow a leader who doesn't dominate anything, who simply goes forward and sets an example, because the 37th is such a friendly energy. It's the energy of example, so they simply go forward, and that's why I would follow someone like that. That's when you'll be guided in the right direction, because a true leader of the new era is not about control, but about inspiration. So if you're in a leadership position or following a leader, choose the right leaders for yourself and be the right kind of leader yourself. Inspire others by your own example, because this is especially important this year because everyone is lost. Like, well, where to? Where to? And suddenly, bam, there's a leader by example, or bam, there's a leader by domination. It's clear that you should choose a leader who doesn't lead through domination. The next lunar node is program 40.4. Let's read it as Ray Fidzin presents it to us, and then we'll also translate it. The number being referred to here is 40.4, that is 40.4, so approximately 40.4. 40.4 is called organization. I'm reading. The power to transform and the intuitive mind to choose and organize for the purpose of support and liberation. The power of the ego, when organized and active, maintains separation. The designer tells us, I'll translate it for you now, don't worry. Or the shadows. An uncontrollable fanatic who ignores the quality of support in favor of quantity, which in the long run can destabilize liberation, and an amplification of the ego at the expense of the ability to organize others. What is all this about? Essentially, it says here that this is also about the ability to organize people and processes. Do you see what kind of lunar nodes we have? Do you see what is the air of this very era? A leader as, for example, this is 37.4 and the second is 40.4. The ability to organize processes, the ability to organize society, and together 37 and 40 combine to form the 37 to 40 channel. This is the channel of community, the channel of family. And so belonging to some community will essentially be the vibe of this year, being in the right community, whether it's family, professional, or an interest-based community where there is a leader who doesn't dominate, who knows not only how to lead, but also how to organize the community. And so if we look at 40.4 as the ability to organize people and processes, then in its gifts, it will be someone who does this according to new principles, who acts through intuition and flexibility, and senses how things need to be restructured so that everything becomes simpler and more flexible. And so once again, this is an organization built not on control, but for the sake of benefit. And that's why organizations built for the sake of benefit rather than domination and control will be in high demand. In its shadow, in the negative aspect, 40.4 manifests as organization from the ego. I know how, and only I know how, so it has to be done my way. This is exactly a kind of power exerted through pressure. Here, to put it simply, the future, the year 2026, offers us organization not through control, but organization where order is established through trust, through freedom. And so, of course, as always, there will be duality. Some will tighten the reins, control, keep controlling. And on the other hand, there will be organizations where you feel free, families where you feel free. And so if a person acts according to their own strategy and authority, then of course they end up in such communities where either they themselves are the leader, the inspirer, and even organize this very community around themselves based on trust. Or, remaining in the shadows, they end up in a community where everything is about domination, everything is about control, about tension, or they become the kind of leader who holds the whole community together through great tension and control, or they find themselves in a community where they are the one being controlled, where they are very unfree. And so the topic of freedom and lack of freedom will also be the vibe of this time. That's why, on the contrary, all these screws will be tightened even more and things will become even less free. And that's why you can't influence these processes. All of this is necessary so that everything can be rebuilt. Doors will close even tighter because that's the nature of this time. All doors are closing and new ones are opening. And so in order not to be stuck at these closed doors, not to be under the pressure of these boundaries, not to be under the weight of these limitations, under the burden of this control, follow your own strategy and authority. And even if you were born in this very time and are living through it, you will be equipped to be in those organizations, in those places, with those people where your freedom will not be restricted in any way, and you will find yourself in the right community. So what kinds of communities should you be in? That will also be the vibe of this year. Which community to join will also be the vibe of this year. So let it be. I wish for all of you that these are communities where either you are an example and an inspiring leader, or you are following an inspiring leader who clearly knows the direction. Because there will be, or already are, people appearing who know exactly where to go. They don't tell anyone where to go, like, oh, only I know I'm going there. They just go. And they serve as an example, and many others start to follow them as well. And that's what these lunar nodes will be like. Now let's see what's next. As you can see, I wrote myself some cheat sheets here. Next, let's take a closer look at the next program that is going to be activated by the moon. Now, here is the moon, as you can see, right here in this position. 37.5 is the value, and it's important to note this number as we move forward. 37.5, again 37. We just talked about 37 and again 37. So the theme of the true leader, one based on trust and friendship, comes up again, but now from the perspective of the fifth line. I'm reading what the I Ching tells us. 37.5. It's called love. Love. I'm reading. Natural and genuine devotion to the community. In the gifts, natural harmony and perfect participation. Natural harmony and participation are possible thanks to friendship. In the shadows, emotional dependence, which often turns love into hatred. The possibility of dependence that turns love into hatred, translating into Russian. The topic of sincerity and the theme of love will be very important both in relationships and in any other areas where you are part of a community. So in the gifts, this is real love with warmth, care, and involvement. It's about being there without control and without expectation. And the requirement is for such a healthy, harmonious love. So if you follow the right leader or use the principles of a true leader who inspires you, then the theme of the moon comes into play. And what is the moon for us? It's the drive of the year. And that's why this year will really energize and move forward those who are in these right, harmonious, and healthy relationships. It's better to be with no one at all than to be in unhealthy relationships, because the moon is the drive of the year. And so there won't be any drive if these relationships are negative. And what do we hear in the negative, in what I just read? A relationship where a person gets attached, gets jealous, takes offense, where love is either pain or hatred. And that's why, as you write, I'm 37. 5, that's my Saturn. And if that's your Saturn, then roughly speaking, that's your punishment, because Saturn always shows what the punishment is. Or on the contrary, it's like a regulator that basically tells you, you have Saturn at 37.5. And so when you're in codependent relationships where love comes through jealousy, resentment, where it comes through hatred, then that will be your punishment. But when you enter into harmonious, healthy relationships, then Saturn acts as a regulator and shows you the way. It works kind of like a helper, not a policeman anymore punishing you, but specifically a helper who shows you the way. And here in this year's transit, we have 37.5, which is our black moon. And the black moon is responsible for drive. So if you want to move forward this year, build relationships not from your mind, like I've been at this job for a long time, or I've been in this couple for a long time. No. Build relationships specifically from this kind of love, from healthy, harmonious relationships. Then this will be your drive for the year. You will be filled with this gasoline-like energy to move forward this year. The black moon, the drive of the year. And of course, give your attention to others as well. Be there, give love to others. Not rescuing, but real, genuine love. This is true love, a deep and profound feeling that is carefully built on the foundation of altruism, not on expectations or conditions. Like, I love you, so please, you should behave the same way. No, it's you. Yes, you have so many feelings, so much friendship, trust, and sincerity within you that you give it without any expectation. So, if you behave this way, then if the environment will respond in kind, and that's how you'll get energized too, because you can't just go up to someone and say, give me love. But you can feel that way towards someone and be with them in such altruistic feelings, where you give love without expecting anything in return. Don't confuse this with trying to rescue someone. If you're trying to rescue someone, there's no real response to that person anymore. For example, I'm only with them out of pity, or at work I'm with them out of pity, or I'm in a relationship with them out of pity. That's not love, that's actually a shadow story of 37.5, because the 0.5 is exactly the rescuer. So don't be that rescuer. But if you truly have a connection, if you genuinely respond to this job or this person, then be that altruist who gives love without expectation. And that will actually be a source of drive for you personally. You'll have that very energy that you'll receive from these relationships by behaving sincerely and altruistically. And where can we behave sincerely and altruistically? Only where we truly like it, where we genuinely feel it, not just in our mind. So again, don't act from your head. Let's move on. What do the planets tell us next? The planets have more to say next. Let's take a look at Mercury. I've already talked about it. Here it is, Mercury 41.1. Let's look at the I Ching. What does the I Ching tell us? Lera writes, I love to save people. Well, I wouldn't recommend doing that next year. That will be anti-drive. It's better to love out of altruism and sincerity. That's when it will be really cool. So 40.1. Practicality. Proper delegation of responsibility. Dara. Imagination that allows you to make the best out of very little. Coldness, where the energy to express feelings is selective, in the shadows. A tendency in understanding to take on opportunities that lead to overexertion and stress. A hot head and impatience in expressing feelings. I'll translate into Russian. This is essentially the ability to act with both reason and emotion in balance. In other words, so that there isn't a situation where there's a kind of imbalance from the perspective of reason or feelings. And so in gifts, this means a person will wisely and calmly manage their energy, and from this state of balance will be able to see opportunities even in small things. That's why the theme of awareness and maturity is very important this year. Because if you as a 41st, and this is our root center, if you as a 41st are under this pressure, in this stress, you won't be able to contain your feelings. And so all your actions won't come from wisdom and calmness, but rather from these kinds of emotional outbursts, because the 41 is directed toward emotions. And so these will be purely emotional decisions, built either on too much reason or too much feeling. But you need to be in balance. That's why the topic of calmness, the topic of awareness, and especially understanding yourself is so important. This is exactly what we focus on in our courses. We give a person knowledge about themselves. And so awareness comes to a person and they begin to be at peace. From this calmness, which essentially works as a balance between feelings and the mind, it allows you to remain calm even in small things and to see opportunities even in the smallest detail. Because for us, the 41st is the beginning. And so if you start from emotional outbursts, it won't lead to anything good. It will only bring stress, tension, and problems. In other words, it's just closed doors. I keep banging on them. And on top of that, I get emotional and stressed about it. But if you're calm, your mind is clear, your feelings are at peace, you can sense everything perfectly. Like, okay, this isn't the right door. So you turn around and there you notice some small door. And that little door is actually a step toward greater opportunities. That's why it's so important to maintain this balance between mind and feeling. Because in the gifts, this is a wise person who calmly manages their energy, sees opportunities even in small things, is conscious in their actions, and is mature. But in the shadows, it's the complete opposite. Emotions and stress take over, the person reacts impulsively, says and does things under their influence, and then regrets it later. This is what we will all be witnessing. That's why prudence, or as the I Ching calls it, expediency, is so important. It's also about not rushing, because the 41st is directed toward the emotional center, so it gives us a hint in that regard. So if suddenly there is some tension and you make a decision while emotional in the heat of the moment, but then as you become aware of it, you realize what's happening, stop, don't rush. Ask yourself, did I actually respond to this, or was it purely out of emotion? Was I even invited into this situation at all? If you're a projector, for example, or if you're a manifester, do I actually have the intention to move in this direction, or is this just an emotional impulse of mine? So do this. This is what I advise you in this case. Of course, here I've also given myself the opportunity to give you advice, though, well, whoever needs it, use it. That's why for each program, I'll also tell you how it unfolds in its shadows and in its gifts, and I'll be guiding you as well. So in order to bring your mind and your feelings into a state of balance, practice calmness using any tools available to you. Practice calmness, whether it's adrenaline, emotional practices, meditation, whatever tools you have to stay calm, use them. If you suddenly notice that you're acting on some impulse, become aware of it and just stop. Exhale, and there, apply your own practices. And once calmness comes, then you can move forward, or if needed, step off this path for a year. After all, this is Venus, this is your inner morality. In essence, it's about starting something new. And that's why it would be cool to start something new, not out of pressure and stress, not under an emotional impulse, but through a sense of calm, because 41.1 is designed for us by Venus. Of course, it's cool to be able to trust the universe. If you can do this too, to be able to wait, because the doors are just now starting to open. The old doors have already closed, they've slammed shut. Right now, they're slamming shut, and by 2026, they'll be completely closed. And so banging on those closed doors is exactly what brings up those emotional outbursts. Like, I want everything to go back to the way it was, but that's just not going to work. So trust the universe that the right door will open for you, the one you really need. Maybe not right away, but it will open. That's the process I'm in right now. This is a time when old doors are closing, and I'm not going to let my emotions push me to keep knocking on closed doors. I'll just take a breath, meditate for a while, and when I open my eyes after meditating, bam, I see some opportunity, maybe a small one, but it leads to big changes, because that's what's written in the I Ching. From the small, the great arises. Yes, from the small comes the great. Was that Venus? No, that was Mercury. That was Mercury. This is Mercury, not Venus. Sorry. Venus is also in the 41st, but it's in the fourth line. We'll talk about that in a moment. So basically, this is going to be on everyone's lips. Either people will transmit stress through everything they say and do, or they will remain calm. I wish for you to be an island of calm and to carry a message of peace. Let everyone else around you carry a message of stress. Let it not trigger you. Let it not affect you. Carry a message of calm and be a source of tranquility. That's our Mercury 41.1. By the way, Venus is also in 41, as I already mentioned. Let me show you. They're right next to each other here. Here, take a look. 41.4, and here is Mercury 41.1, which we just discussed. Let's read 41.4. Correction. Successful adaptation to limitation. In its gift. Survival of the strongest and their potential prosperity. Energy for adaptation and a deep sense for survival. In its shadows, expending energy on maintaining relationships instead of correcting them. In times of decline, weak connections are avoided as costly, regardless of their appeal. The energy that fuels clinging to a feeling instead of adapting. Let me put it in simple terms. Essentially, since Venus is responsible for our inner value and morality, the morality of this year will be the ability to adapt to stress and preserve oneself. That's what this year will be about. Everyone on an individual level will be learning to do this, to adapt to it. And what is stress? It's something new that's always stressful. And so, since the old doors have closed and the new doors haven't opened yet, everyone is in this state of stress. But that's just the way things are right now. So, how do we learn to adapt? The answer is given by the 41st. Let this pressure pass through you, because right now nothing new can happen without pressure. So, let this pressure pass through you and remain calm. And so, in the gifts, this is a person who responds very flexibly to change and doesn't break. From this, their survival instinct grows in these adaptive conditions. That's essentially what 41.4 tells us. And in the shadows, this is a person who wastes their energy, stays stressed, trying to maintain some old order. He's like, damn, everything is changing. I'm stressed. I have to preserve it at any cost, even if it exhausts me. And so he tries to hold on to all these old principles, but they can't be preserved anymore. And he's stressed and he's anxious. And of course, this is extremely draining. And quite naturally, in such states, no adjustment or adaptation to new conditions will happen at all. So it's better not to do it this way. And that's why this is such an important topic here. It's easier to just let go. If you really understand that this is some old program, that it simply doesn't work anymore, then that's it, it doesn't work. There's no need to retreat into the shadow of 41.4 and try to preserve it at any cost. No way, that's a shadow program. On an internal level, you'll be drained. It will exhaust your whole body and your consciousness. So if it really doesn't work anymore, if it's already an old program, then it's worth letting it go, because the strength of this 41.4 program lies not in struggle, but in adaptation. And adaptation is precisely about letting go of the old, and then there's no stress, and adapting to new conditions becomes easier. That's why it's important to learn to adapt, not just to adjust yourself. That's what 41.4 is about. And the strength is in flexibility. In flexibility, like, I let this go, goodbye old program, and that's exactly what flexibility is. The flexibility of our consciousness to let go, which then translates into the physical. The strength is in being flexible, not in being unyielding. This is what this year will be about for us. This will be almost the main reference point of the year. Be flexible, not rigid. This could practically be the motto of the year. Be flexible, not rigid. And that's why we conserve energy by letting go of what no longer works, especially those desires that have nothing to do with real life. Like, I've lived in this house my whole life. Now I can't afford to maintain it, but no matter what, I'm going to keep living here, even if it kills me. Why? Because that's what I want. Well, maybe that's just an old pattern, let it go. And maybe you'll adapt to something new. And it might even turn out to be better than, say, renting such an expensive house or chasing after some other desire that isn't really justified. And here's another piece of advice I'd give. Understand that this is a very transformational and adaptive time. So you need to learn to adapt. You really have to keep reminding yourself, like, wow, things are changing right now. So either I become adaptable and stop resisting change, or I keep resisting change and then that's it. I'm stressed and tense all the time. And the desires I'm clinging to won't come true, because the tension will just keep building. It's like you have this, the old patterns are fading away, but you keep trying to hold on to them. So, of course, this whole thing about the adaptation process always follows the path of change. That's why it's important to understand this and not cling to what has already outlived its time. Rai also said that closer to 2026 or 2027, there will be tests for what is no longer solid. Because only what is solid will be carried into the new era, and everything that has outlived itself, everything that is decaying, will be left behind. And that's exactly why we're entering these tests right now. Next, Mars. Mars and the cycle. This cycle, is such a powerful conflict-driven energy. And it's also 60.3. Who knows the 60th? It's part of channel 63. I call it the channel of suicides, meaning it's really a depressive energy also from the root center. It's also a root center program. Now let's see how the I Ching interprets it for us. Everything is really starting to stick out more and more. And honestly, I wanted to wear black clothing here today, but I just don't really like how it looks on me. Okay, so I think you probably came here for some useful information, not just to look at my hair or my outfit. So 60. Point 3, now I'll see how it's read here, and then I'll translate it for you too. Conservatism, in the shadows, it's a contradiction to the ego and an interest in oneself that ignores limitations and predicts suffering. Energy that ignores limitations and pays the price for it. And in its gifts, it's an enlightened interest in oneself. I recommend the Live Your Design course, which naturally deals with restrictions and limits, guaranteeing identity and safety. It's the energy to maintain authenticity and security despite limitations. Nothing makes sense, right? Okay, let me translate. Essentially, here Mars, which gives us a very explosive and militant energy, is telling us, my friends, maintain your resilience when life puts boundaries and limitations in your way. Because these boundaries and limitations, some people may see them as just that, boundaries and limitations. And then, hello, deep depression. If you have gate 60 and it's activated by Mars, that's a very powerful depression. The kind where you feel like, damn, I can't take these boundaries and limitations anymore. Boundaries and limitations everywhere, boundaries and limitations. I just want to jump out the window. That's exactly the kind of feeling we're talking about. And these closed doors of old programs will also be perceived as boundaries and limitations. But boundaries and limitations are also opportunities, because if everything here is restricting you and you keep going there, it helps you understand that everything here is already closed off. And so if we look at these boundaries and limitations, which are so tense in our lives as a resource, we can see the road that's being shown to us, the one we shouldn't take. And that's why in their gifts, this will be a person who holds their support within themselves. Someone who knows how to let go of what is unnecessary and doesn't get caught up in these limitations, in these boundaries. But in the shadows, this will be a person who doesn't want to see anything new, who tries to break down these closed doors and gets more and more lost, trying to hold on to what is slipping away. So here, to put it simply, this is exactly the program that Mars gives us, which says that strength is not about breaking down these closed doors, but about respecting them as something that has already run its course. Take the essence from there and see the new. Say, well, that's it. These doors are closed now. Goodbye to the old program. I'm done here. Those old relationships that have run their course, that old job that's over. That's it. I'm not going to keep pushing against these closed doors anymore. For me, that's already an old program. That's it. Goodbye. I take the essence from there and move on to something new. And so here, my advice is to respect these closed doors as a limitation. And if you can't open them for a long time, if you're really feeling tense, then that's exactly the sign that you need to let it go. And you let it go. You don't try to break through those closed doors anymore. Instead, you step away from them. That's why limitations here will work as a resource. If it's hard, look in another direction. If it's hard, then most likely it's already an outdated program. And again, the 60th tells us that if you stop trying to break through that closed door, then just wait. Literally, after a while, if you shift your focus away from there, free up space for something new, then wait and a new door will open for you. Because this is a year of closed and open doors. And only by letting go of the old, only by stepping away from that closed door and not trying to force your way through it, do you start to see these new opportunities. But as long as you keep pushing against the closed door, you simply don't see the open ones. So if everything feels stuck, if everything is tense, then most likely it's already an outdated program or an outdated situation or outdated relationships. So use this year as a transition into something new, change. What's next for us? All right, moving on. Let me see. Tadam. Jupiter. Jupiter, 53.4. Also the root center, by the way, the 53rd program. Also the root center, also about stress. By the way, if we look at it in cosmological terms, 53 is the leader of the new era. The leader of the old era is our second program, and the leader of the new era is 53. Those who attended our cosmology sessions immediately understood what I'm talking about. And for those who haven't, I'll explain now. These closed and open doors will also bring us new leaders. And that's why we'll see the old leaders leaving. And by the way, this year will also be a time when all the old leaders leave. On a global level, in fact, the departure of old leaders and the arrival of new ones. We'll be watching this unfold throughout the year like a blockbuster movie. So leaders on stage, leaders in politics, leaders elsewhere, even leaders in more everyday spheres. Leadership itself will be changing because, well, the old is leaving, and everyone who clings to conservatism, everyone stuck in old patterns, they are no longer the heroes of this era. It all starts in 26, and by 27, it will be completely obvious. Everything new will be right there. So 53.4, let's read what the I Ching has to say about this. All right, let me see. 53.4, which is the gate of beginnings. And that's none other than Jupiter. And Jupiter is a very powerful program for us. I like to call it our father figure. It's the one who says, all right, friends, here is a new law for you, and gives us this new law. And this new law is the law of beginnings. A new development begins. Oh, the gate of beginnings. Somewhere there in the fourth line. It's called the ability to preserve one's strength. The ability to preserve one's strength. Let's read. In the gifts. The ability to preserve one's individuality in complex and often awkward situations, ensuring continuous safety and development. The pressure to maintain one's individuality in chaotic beginnings. In the shadows, constant difficulty and awkward and in stressful situations where normal emotional reactions can be harmful. Individual pressure for new beginnings, creating difficult, sometimes embarrassing situations. What did the I Ching want to tell us? What did those who wrote this text want to tell us? Essentially, the law of the new era, which is now being carefully programmed. Program 53.4 tells us that here, in this place, we must preserve our strength for a new and promising start. That is, if we live through this year in calmness, understanding that the old doors have closed and the new ones are just beginning to open, and we remain calm and don't bang on closed doors, we preserve our strength and energy for a new start. And that's why 53.4 is exactly the ability to preserve energy for a new start. And in the gifts, those who live in the gifts will be absolutely calm about the old closing. They understand the processes. They know that all of this is safe for them. There is no stress here. Well, yes, the old is closing. Well, that happens. And now it's happening on a global level. The old is closing. What can you do? Well, all right, okay. They are calm, but in the shadows, energy will be spent on not letting go. And such people will try to start from the old. That is, they will initially try to start something new because such a law descends, begin. And so those who begin from a place of calm will do so with strength and energy because they haven't fought for the old. But those who either fight for the old or start from old patterns, that will be, from the very beginning, the birth of a dead child. And so, of course, these will be dead processes. And so in the shadows, this will mean wasting energy on not letting go, or wasting energy on starting something new from the old based on old foundations. For example, I haven't wanted to be here for a long time. We already have problems in our relationship. And for a long time now, the program has been telling me, close these doors. But I'm like, well, let's start over in a new way. Well, again, let's do it on this old foundation. Or there's another shadow theme, trying to preserve, trying to hold on to something that's already run its course. But it's just not going to work because it's all not the same anymore. So it's better to preserve yourself. Strategy and authority are there to help you. If it no longer resonates with you, if after the invitation, if you're a generator and it doesn't respond, if you're a projector and the invitation no longer works, if you're no longer recognized here, there's no more success in what you're doing and what you're directing. If you're a manifester and everything here is already getting on your nerves, that's exactly what Jupiter is telling you, like a father. Preserve yourself, follow your inner authority, and don't stay in these old patterns anymore. Act consciously. By the way, that's the advice for this very time. Preserve yourself, follow your strategy and authority, act consciously and not out of pressure. And again, since this is about the root center, in order to keep everything calm, use practices, sit in your meditations, and then you'll realize that's it. This is an outdated program. Goodbye. There's no need to save or preserve anyone anymore. Maybe it's time to leave. And really, the whole vibe of 2026 is about this. That's why evolution will also support this, because 53, by the way, is very connected to the evolutionary process, since it looks at 42, and 42 is evolution itself. Let's move on. What's our next program? All right, just a moment. I found this old picture, and the girl in it really looks a lot like Yura. She doesn't really look like me, but Yura looks so much like himself, as if we were together in some earlier times as well. All right, let's keep going. We've reached Saturn. Saturn is 36.6. And what is Saturn for us? As I already mentioned, it's either punishment or a regulator. Now let me find what 36.6 means. So it's a crisis. This is our emotional system. This is our central nervous system, the 36. The gate of crisis. So what does it say in the sixth line? It's called justice. It was the sixth one there, right? Yeah, justice. I'm reading. The inevitable survival of the steadfast. So that's what Saturn is about for us. That is, Saturn says that only the steadfast will move on to the next stage. Only the steadfast will enter the next era in the gifts. Knowledge and the accompanying faith that the forces of darkness will ultimately destroy themselves. Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first drive mad. The correctness of crisis, when it grows out of pure feeling, in the shadow. Deep sadness and cynicism that does not diminish even with the understanding that darkness will destroy itself. Sadness or cynicism that comes with the realization that despite the correctness of feelings, sometimes there is a crisis. Translating into Russian. Truth prevails. This is essentially what 36.6 wants to tell us. And that's why those in the shadows will understand perfectly well that good is stronger than evil, that the dark forces are, in principle, fewer. There really are fewer of them. Because if you truly believe in this, then that's the reality you live in, where there is more light in your life than darkness. And even though these seem to be times of closing doors, nevertheless, you still see bright themes in this as well. And that's why even faith, true faith in the fact that darkness, there is less of it than light. This, in essence, means not being under Saturn's punishment anymore. But you really have to believe in it. That is, you actually need to live from this place. And then there won't be this crisis, there won't be this anxiety. And in the shadows, of course, are those people who live with the inner belief that, damn, evil will definitely win, darkness will definitely win. And especially now, in a time when everyone is tense, there's this feeling that I'm wearing myself down, that darkness is winning. This world of sadness, cynicism, nerves, and fatigue will then exist around such a person, because Saturn either punishes or guides. And that's why I recommend that you truly believe that even in these blockbuster-like times, when such things are happening, the closing of the old and the beginning of the new, even in these evolutionary epoch-making years, in any case, all of this is for the sake of light processes. And that's why there are always more light processes than dark ones. So what is the truth here? What does 36.6 bring? Truth rules. And if there is truth inside, what is the truth for each person? Truth is based on energy. If a generator is satisfied with their processes, if a projector is recognized, if a manifester is at peace, if a reflector is enchanted, that is the truth. So focus on this truth, because truth rules, and it is always within. Then the difficulties, this transitional period and the challenges associated with it, these are just adaptation difficulties, and they will be completely surmountable thanks to these inner supports. A manifester will find inner support in their calm, a generator will find inner support in their satisfaction, and a projector will find inner support in recognition from others. And that's why everyone needs strategy and authority, and then truly you will actually be able to overcome. So what advice is there here? Trust yourself, of course, and at the very least, start finding your own inner supports. If you can't find them on your own, come to our course, Living Your Design, or to the one on the 20th. On November 1st, there will be a course from the Contour channel, Gene Keys. There, you will get to know yourself, and in this way, you will find your inner support because no one but you can find it within yourself. So, when you get to know yourself through any self-discovery system, you can use human design, for example. This is how you find those very supports within yourself, and that's what gives you strength. And so, this is truly the advice for this year. Trust yourself and start relying on your own strategy and authority. And for those who have been experimenting for a long time, who have already completed our course, keep doing it. So if a crisis like 36.5 happens, a crisis, but inside you maintain a positive state, then this will actually be an amplification, because in such crisis moments, when you rely on yourself from within, you become 600 times stronger than in ordinary calm time. So believe that there is more light than darkness. Second, rely on your inner supports, on your strategy and inner authority. All right, let's move on. Are you all still okay? Not too tired yet? We've already been sitting here together for an hour. Maybe Yura isn't tired? We have 2 planets left. Yes, yes, just 2 remaining at this stage. Let's count them together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So as we can see, income 3 left and the value 8.4 comes up. Now turning our attention to Uranus, let's see what Uranus with the value of 8.4 tells us. This number might represent something important about Uranus, and by looking at what Uranus at 8.4 means, we can gain more insight into our analysis. 8 is the theme of contribution and 0.4 is the theme of community. Remember, we also have channel 40037 coming into the community. And so if you value yourself, you also value another person who contributes to your life. That's why 8.4 is called respect. Respect. I'm reading. The gift is naturally to recognize the contributions of others, in particular to acknowledge those who lead by example in gifts. An uncompromising drive for assimilation and a desire to contribute and be an example for others in the shadows. In a group where limitation has been overcome, the mind alone cannot predict individual value. For example, a recognized leader of a sports team is not necessarily the most talented. The gift of contributing is not determined by limitations. What are we talking about here? Here we are talking about having the inner strength and ability to value and acknowledge the contributions of others. If you yourself are lacking, if you are nervous and stressed, then naturally you won't appreciate others either. And by the way, it's Uranus that gives us this kind of program. And what does Uranus say? Uranus talks about the highlight of this year. And that's why the highlight of this year is to value the contributions of others. You can only value the contributions of others when you are abundant and strong. And so, in its gifts, this will be a person who serves as an example for others, who supports and inspires others, and is inspired by them as well. In its shadows, this will be a person who does not value others and only says, I can do this and the rest of you are useless. These are the shadows. Our story is closely connected with communities. So truly valuing others, and especially the contributions they make, is also a theme of this year. You simply need to see the value in others and also be the contribution that you give to your community. Advice for 8.4. Learn to notice the efforts of other people. And in the family, how much he does is also a lot. It's not that you devalue his contribution. On the contrary, you appreciate his contribution. Of course, if you are next to someone you no longer want to be with, someone you are disappointed in as a reflector, or who annoys you as a manifester and so on, these inner feelings are telling you it's not the right fit. If that's the case, then you won't be able to start appreciating him just with your mind. And consequently, you won't be able to appreciate his contribution. And that's why this year's special highlight, the raisin, won't happen. So follow your strategy and authority. The people you truly interact with, whether closely or from a distance, if they genuinely give you something, appreciate it. Value their contribution, acknowledge it honestly. This is real advice. Acknowledge another person's contribution honestly. And develop sincerity, because it will be very useful. By the way, developing sincerity through valuing and appreciating another's contribution is actually pretty cool. Sincerity will come in handy in 27, so start developing it now. If suddenly there's no such, but how? be in the right communities, in the right family. Let's move on. Neptune, 25.2. It's been in the 25th for a long time now. Since March 8th of last year, it's been there in the 25th. And essentially, it's setting the program for spirituality for us, because Neptune is about spirituality. Let's read what the I Ching says in 25.2. Let's read. Here, I'm a socio-analyst. Dedication and devotion to the present. In the gifts of the perfection of the mind, thanks to concentration and focus on what is, rather than on what could have been or was. The innocence of the I and its protection can only be preserved in the present. In the shadows, devotion that can be freed from personal motivation and the accompanying projection. The absence of innocence in the present, confirming the protection by signature, exposing the protection to risk because of projection. I'm translating. To live here and now. To surrender to and be devoted to the moment. Look, since the old, that is the past, is closing and the new hasn't fully opened yet, where can we be? Only in the present moment, and therefore only from the present moment, by being aware of everything that is happening right now, can you be in the spirituality of this very time. That's why in the gifts, it's exactly about a person who is truly learning to concentrate on the present moment and on what is happening now. It's very effective to do this through knowledge and gate 25. If we look at it through the lens of circuits, it's the circuit of knowledge. And so through knowledge, Living Your Design or any of our other courses, this knowledge provides, through knowledge, a very good understanding of all existing processes and of yourself in the present moment. That's why the gift of 25.2 is to learn to concentrate on the present moment. In the shadows, it means living in the past, holding on to the old, that is not being in the present moment, or living in the future because it hasn't opened up yet. That's also being lost, because the 25th is also the G center. And that's why the G tells us about direction. So if we're in the past or in the future, we're lost. So be in the present moment. In short, the simplest thing again is knowledge. Being in the present moment through awareness of this moment, as well as through any available practices. The communities you are part of, for example, our students join a course and they communicate in the chat there. We interact with them and also constantly bring them back to the present moment, focusing their attention on the here and now. And sometimes a student who has just joined our course writes, "But what should I do about the future?" And we say, "Wait, the future, let's come back here. Let's look at what's happening right now in the present, because it's from this present that the future will grow itself. So let's bring our focus back here." And we guide them to return to the present. And then by the time they finish the course, they already have the skill of concentrating on themselves, being present in this moment and focusing on what exists right now. And that is what self-love is. To be interested in yourself, to be interested in your own life in the present moment. The 25th is about unconditional love, and that's how we arrive at this unconditional love, by being in the present moment. Therefore, any available tools that help you gently return to the present moment and to yourself are suitable here for reaching this very moment of now. And this is exactly what Neptune is about for us. And finally, we have Pluto. Here it is, the last one you see, 42, 41.2, again 40, 41, again the root center. This is precisely the theme of the new. Once again, let's see what 41.2 says right now. Caution. 2. Caution. Let me read. Humanism restrained by pragmatism. In its gifts, a conservative nature that helps others without risking its own safety. Energy for one's own feelings, but not for others. In its shadow, a desire for recognition that throws caution to the wind, depleting valuable resources for temporary gain. Energy used to display feelings for the sake of recognition. What does this mean in simple terms? Be careful when expressing your feelings, because everyone here is tense, everyone is stressed, all the doors are closed for everyone, everything is just starting over, nobody knows anything yet, and then you come out and start expressing your feelings recklessly. Yes, it's such an explosive environment. That's why Pluto tells us to be careful with our words. Programming at 41.2. In its shadow aspect, this is a person who can't control themselves, and under the pressure of their own stress, expresses not only their own feelings and emotions, but also absorbs additional stress from the outside world. But in its gift, this is a person who knows how to remain calm. From here, you get your strategy and authority. From here comes your self understanding. From here comes your calmness. And that's why when you understand yourself, when you understand the processes, you know how to stay calm, even if someone else is stressed out because the old ways no longer work. You just calmly look at it, thank the environment for giving you such an interesting picture, exhale, and move on without trying to prove anything to anyone. So, exhaling is what this time is for, understanding that such processes are happening and also training your calmness and developing your inner maturity through strategy and authority. Also, the 40037 channel has become the main program of this year. This is about family and small communities. And so all the energy will be drawn from there, from family, from some small interest-based communities where it feels like everyone is family. So if you have such an outlet in the form of a family or some kind of community, whether it's an online community or not online, of course, this will be the source from which you draw your strength. So join the course. We have a great community there. Or gather such a community around yourself. But again, let me remind you, not through domination, but by inspiring with your own example, not through rules and control, but through love and altruism. And the second program that has come up for us in this year's transit is not shown here, but we have it. It's a program that influences our subconscious. Is program 5720. Intuition in the moment, which also tells us return to the present and apply intuitive knowledge, not rational, but intuitive. And so these two programs and everything I just told you, that's the vibe of this year. I've actually given you advice. Use it. I'll read your questions and then we'll wrap up. Here you're writing that you also have the same programs I used as examples. Mashulka, hi. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Masha, you're the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's so cool that I inspire you because it would be great if everyone could just live through this time in peace. How nice would that be? Of course, not everyone will watch this stream, so not everyone will find that peace. Hi, Dims. Hi to everyone. Hello to those I see and to those who just rushed in from work and started watching right away. It's so nice to read your messages. Like when you write that your temperature is 37.5 or that your cake is 37. Love it. You explain things in such detail. Even my son is texting me. He's sitting and watching. That's cool. Kids these days, they understand more than I do. Sometimes I give lectures in this chair and we have a studio right here. And just beyond the studio, there's a common area and then the kitchen. Sometimes when I forget to close the door, Sashka says, I'm sitting here listening to what you're teaching in your lesson. He says, hey, this is actually a really cool topic. I understand everything you're saying. And sometimes people even ask me about it. That's why kids are the first generation that has come to be our teachers. Because children essentially are born for this new era. All these principles are already embedded in them. And so being born in this transitional time, they already know how to live in the future. That's why, in essence, they've come to teach us all of this. So it's cool that they also watch this lecture or this broadcast too. Masha is a master at conveying information to everyone because it's important for life. My husband has dormant 30s. How many 41s will it take to wake him up emotionally? So please know your own settings too, because all these programs also influence your individual design, making you different as well, either preparing you for this new era or, on the contrary, irritating you. All right, all right, all right. Awesome. Respecting the old is very wise, but for that you need to be flexible. Sveta, you really nailed the term. And which throat channels do the formulators have? Have you been talking for a long time? Who have you been talking to for an hour already? Oh, it's already been an hour. In astrology, Sveta writes about Jyotish, that Jupiter will be in its strongest position next year. Cool. And I've already started saving my energy this year. Let's do it. It'll come in handy for adaptation. Jupiter is just trying on this position for 3 months, so we're living through it. Or like today, 2 people totally went off on me, said I annoy them. I'm like, my 38th gate of caution is kicking in, so be careful. My Saturn is returning at 27. Oh, wow. I'm listening with pleasure, super. But where's the question? Are there no questions? Oh, Maria, could you tell us what book you have there? Thank you in advance. It's the I Ching. If you've attended our courses, we hand out this book. It has all the gates written out for each line. But the language there is quite complex, so you need to take the course to understand it, to decipher it, because it's pretty difficult to grasp otherwise. That's why I don't post it anywhere. It's only available to students. Oh, Sveta writes, I've been reading this little book for so long, it's hard to understand. It's better, as Masha just said, to translate it into Russian. Come and I'll translate it into Russian for you. By the way, I've already read it through and through. Could you please tell me, is a meeting planned in Yekaterinburg? Yes, it is planned. Well, I think all the spots have already been taken there. We will be discussing children on November 13th. We'll be analyzing children's body graphs. But I'm not the organizer, so you need to contact the Vlast V. Balan's mom. By the way, tomorrow is their birthday. I've been invited to some kind of grand party. They are actually the organizers, so you need to contact them. The meeting is free, but I think the spots are limited. Maria, thank you. Not everyone even believes that I share all this. It's okay, they'll believe it. They just cling to the old ways, and those who don't believe are the ones holding on to the old. Well, they're going to feel a lot of pressure. By the way, I really needed this stream. I need to listen to it again for sure. Masha, which planet is about coziness, home, and softness? 40 to 37, 40 to 37. That's family. Thank you for the stream. Yeah, thank you for the stream. Masha, please do a webinar about children. Oh, by the way, that's a great topic. A webinar about children. Right now, we're going to have a webinar on transits and cycles. There, I'll teach how to read yearly transits, your solar return, weekly transits, and also annual cycles. This webinar will be held on November 8th. Throughout the whole day, I'll be teaching all of this, how to read everything, all these transits, including the ones I read today. So if you're interested, come join us. And then most likely we'll do it a bit later. In December, right before New Year, we'll do the one about raising children. That's all. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.